Hello everybody. In this video we will be talking about the material requirements planning. Now within this, the first thing that we need to know is what is the bill of material. How does it help in planning for the aggregate uh, inventory that we need in the future. And then also after that we will also talk about the enterprise resource planning and how they all tie together. Okay, so the first thing we need to know about the material requirements planning is we need to know the product structure and how individual components tie up to the finished goods. Okay, so let's go ahead and start making the product structure with as an example for this current question. In with the given information, what we do know is that we want about 100 units in the week 7. Okay, so let's start making the structure from top down. So I'm going to start with, let's say I need around 100 units for S. So I have, oops, so we are given that we have S for about 100 units, and then this would become our level 0, and each unit of S requires 1 of T. So I make T here, I make U here, I need 1 of T, I need 2 of U. This would be called as level 1. Now remember, this always starts from 0. This is the final product. This is the first tier um, components for the final product. Now each of T requires 1 of V here. So each of T requires 1 of V and 2 of W, 2 of W, and 1 of X. And similarly, each unit of U requires 2 of Y and 3 units of Z. Okay, now this much information, now all of these are at level 2. So all of this information is supposed to be included in bill of material, and this is what we call as product structure. Okay, product structure. Now all of the numbers, the variables as we can call them, let's say all of these numbers, they tell us how many of the components in the lower level are required if we need 100 units of S, given the fact that this structure is referred for 1 unit each. So if when we want to find out for 100 units of S, we would need 1 times 100 units of T, 2 times 100 units of U, so about 200, and then whatever the resulting number here is, 100 times 1, so we need 100 of V, 100 times 2, we need 200 of W's, we want 1 times 1 and 100, so we want 100 of X. Now this was 200 units, so 200 times 2, we want 400 units of Y, 200 times 3, we want 600 units of Z. Okay, now these variables are in layman's language we could call them multipliers. These are hard coded in any software that you will be using for the company that you may be working for. So we will transfer this product structure in spreadsheets such that it is somewhat useful, and then organize it in a manner that we can reuse time and time again. If this number was to change from 100 to, let's say, 150, then what will these resulting numbers be? Now, if this was to go from 100 to 200, just going with round numbers, then all of these numbers will also double. Now, when you're working for a firm, knowing how many of these components you need in terms of quantity helps you place a better order in terms of purchasing and procurement department. Okay, all the while when you're planning for delivering a finished quantity of number of units of S, either next week, next month, or for next 3 months, or for next 6 months. Okay, so let's transfer all of this into a spreadsheet and organize it. So this is roughly the transfer of that hand drawing thing into uh, how we can represent the product structure within Excel such that it is also useful. So if you see here, these are all my multipliers. So I can change this number from 100 to, let's say, 200, and all the other numbers should follow, such that this is dependent on the quantity required for, this is called parent-child relationship. The parent number of parent quantities times the multiplier, and that should give me the resulting units for T. Similarly, if I need 200, then let's say, for example, for W, this would be 200 times the multiplier for W, and hence the 400 units of W. So the way this helps is when we have to find out how many units of, let's say, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z units do we need, then we can easily keep a tally of all these units combined. Okay, so I'll fill this up. So I'm done filling up all of these numbers. Let me also make space for S is the level 1, sorry, level 0. So that's S, and T and U are level 1, and then all others are level 2. So just remember that they all start from 0 and not the 1. So the finished good that we are planning for is level 0. Okay. Now, for each of these, these are all the calculated values. If you look at it, then I just made them directly equals to where my calculation was. But the structure helps us keep track of the numbers. So let's say for W, it's coming from cell number L9, wherein that number has been calculated by multiplying the multiplier for 2, the W, which is 2, times the 200. And then that 200 comes from 1 times 200 above here. So similarly, for if you look at the how many number of U's do we need, it's derived from 200 times 2, which is 400, and then for Y it is 2 times the 400. So 2 is the multiplier, which is the given, that information is given, times the 400, which is the parent unit that we need to manufacture. So this way, I mean, you can change this number depending on what is asked in the question, or however you want to change numbers. So if the 100 units of S are required, then these are the quantities that we need for individual components. Now, the next step after having made the product structure is to build a time phase product structure, because this does not take into account this. In so far what we have done tells us the relationship between the individual components in comparison to the final product, but it does not tell us when do we need all of these components by. So if you remember from the project management, the same concept will come in. Now before I get there, let me color code some of these to make it stand out a little more. So Now what I want to do is I want to transpose the structure that I've just made. So this is what I already have. Now let's say we we want to make the time phase structure, because so far we know the interrelationship between the individual components and the final product, but we do not know the as to what components are needed when and how long will it take. So if you remember going with the project management chapter, we will bring back the same concepts, such that we will start, let's say, if we were to represent 1 week as one cell here. Now, depending on where you're working for, which company and what position you're working for, there are three major softwares that will do this automatically for us. I mean, especially Oracle JD Edwards or SAP, or the last one is IBM Watson. Oh, sorry, IBM has its own ERP setups. So IBM, SAP, and Oracle JD Edwards, these would, I mean, make our life a lot simpler. Now, given the fact that we have this much of uh, time to assemble for each one of them, I'm going to use that as a reference. So I'm going to use S for 2 cells, and why not I also color code them. So let's say these 2 cells, I'm going to fill them up, I'm guessing with this color. Okay, so it takes 2 weeks for S. Now S needs T and U, so I'll put in T here, T, and let's say U. Oops, caps lock. And also keep it color coded such that now T can be made in 1 week, but U requires 2 weeks. Okay, now let's say level 2. For each T, I need V, W, and X. I need V, W, and X. Okay, center, and they are so colored. V can be done in 2 weeks. W requires 3 weeks. X requires 1 week, so that's okay. Now for every U, I need Y and Z. Y and Z. And Y requires 2 weeks. Z requires only 1 week. Yeah. So let's look at what we have so far. Okay. For every unit of S, it will take us 2 weeks. So it will take us 2 weeks. Quantity is given here. For every 100 units of S, I need 100 units of T and U. So this would be 100 of T and 100 units of U. Now, if you were to write down this from week number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that means I need 100 units of U to be assembled right by the end of week 2. Now, in order to have these many 100 units of U to be assembled by the start of the 3rd week, I need Y. How many Ys do I need on by time 0 or before the start of the assembly process? I need 400 units of Y. I need 200 units of W. That's coming from here, and this is coming from here. So I need 200 units of W and 400 units to begin the process. Then by start of the second week, I will need 100 units of W. I will need 600 units of Z, right? I need 600 units of Z. This will allow me to start assembling 100 units of T and 100 units of 200 units of U. So this is 200. This 200 is coming from here, such that by end of 6 weeks, I will have 100 units of S. Okay, so all of this process that we have uh, in this much is called as time phase structure. Okay, so I'm going to type this up. Oh, time phase structure. Come on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Center. Now, so we made the product structure, we made the time phase structure as well. Now the next thing is using these information, what we call as gross requirement planning, as to when do we need it and how many of them do we need it. It's mostly in a tabular format, and you'll see a lot more ERP systems working in a DOS mode, or where everything in the background is black and nothing but these alphabets will be there and their quantities will be there with their specified numbers. So the way you can look at it, and especially in today's um, the kind of situations that we are going through, let's say if these are the number of beds of hospitals, uh, beds we need in the hospital. Let's say this is the number of ventilators that you need. This is the number of other equipments that you need for each of the bed. And then for each of the ventilators, you have these 3 components. And then for this equipment, you have other 2 components. So the basic idea will stay the same. The reason textbook is giving us these alphabets is S, T, U, V, W is because it doesn't want us to become biased towards only one kind of structure. Now we want to combine this in terms of individual components as to when do we need it and how many of them do we need it. Okay, and try to combine this with let's say if you have any items already that were ordered previously or that are about to come in or left over from other production process. Okay, so for a typical gross requirement planning, let's start with one level at a time. So I'm starting for level S, level 0 for finished good as S. So the gross requirements would take into account any scheduled receipts that might be coming in. So let me align this with the time phase structure on the top. So okay, so now they align this. So this is nothing, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, now if that's the case, then I can move this 1 cell over. Okay, come on. So let me move this 1 cell over. Okay, so for this, I'm going to use this information 14.5. We have certain on-hand inventory. So for S, I'm going to bring it here close by so that I can see it. So then let's deal with this much. Okay, now I need scheduled receipts. There's no information given, so 0. Projected on hand, on this week is going to be 20. Why is this 5? This needs to be 1. Okay, yes. So in week 6, I will have on hand of 20. Therefore, my net requirement is going to be 100. So why don't I bring that information as well here. So net requirement for S is here. So net requirement is going to be 100 minus 20. Planned order receipts, how many are coming in, how many, given the need 100 minus 20, 80 do I need, so I need to release the orders for about 80 units, and these orders need to be released 2 weeks prior, okay, because it takes 2 weeks, right, the lead time here. So in order to get this done by this time, I need to make 1 and 2. So I will release it on this day. So I will, on the floor, I would send out the information for 80 units of S to be made, such that whoever or whatever the staff and the other equipment that is needed to assemble 80 units of S will be ready by the end of week 4. So then in the next 2 weeks we can make up 80 units of S, such that a total of 100 would be ready by the end of 6 weeks. Okay, this is what will go into the master production schedule, the most detailed level plan that is released on the production floor. Okay, now similarly, I'm going to show you few more. But before I do that, let me automate some of this stuff, so then we can copy and paste it more often. So gross requirement here, let me make this equals to this number. So then I don't need this. Instead, net requirements would therefore be 100 minus projected on hand minus any scheduled receipts, and then planned order receipts are going to be the net requirements planning, unless there is any more information given. That more information will come in when we are calculating net requirements planning instead of gross requirement planning. Okay, this is just a typical format that is universally followed. There might be more details into it, but I'm going to copy this basic structure and then copy it over. This is for T. I'm going to change this as required. So this is for T. Then this, and I'm going to delete all of this information. Okay. And let me, okay, paste this for S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. And for each of these, I will make these equal S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. Okay. And projected on hand also needs to be changed for each of them. So let's say this is also given to me in this question. So this is equals to this. Let me bring this STU, yeah, okay, I should have done that before. This, 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 this. Okay, now this is level 0. These are going to be level 1. So level 1, level 1, level 2 for this, V, W, X, Y, and Z. Similarly, let me zoom out and make these equals to signs there. So this one for T, it's 20. Then for U, it's 40. For V, it's 30. For W, it's 30 again. For X, it's 25. For Y, it's 240. For Z, it's 40. Okay. Now let's look at one thing at a time. Now, okay, so this is where we were. Okay, now we are ready. So let's say we were done with S. Now we are looking at T. So for T, we are looking by week 4. Okay, so the gross requirement is 100. Scheduled receipts, we don't know. Projected on hand is 20. Net requirement therefore is 100 minus 0 equals to 100 minus scheduled receipts minus projected on hand. Therefore planned order receipts are going to be the net required. Now if this was not to be the net requirement and only the gross requirement planning, then we would only have this much of information. So this is what we'll be dealing with. Okay, so this is how the simple gross requirement planning would look like. Okay, now it takes how many weeks? 1 week. Therefore the order must be released by this week. So we will release in week 3 the mass production schedule, such that there are enough people on the floor, there are enough material. So similarly for you will be starting on week number 4. Okay, so let's come back here, equals to 200 units of U. Now scheduled receipts we don't know, projected on hand is 40. Net requirement therefore going to be gross required minus scheduled receipt minus projected on hand. Therefore planned order receipts are going to be for the net requirements planning of 160 units, and it takes 2 weeks, so we will have to release this by 1 week and 2 weeks prior. Okay, so okay, now let's talk about level 2 units. For V, we need to start by week number 3. So why don't I if I was to freeze this, then it won't be visible on your screen. So I'm going to start with V starts in week number 3. So V starts in week number 3, and I need 100 units of V. This is 0. This is required 30. And the only reason I brought these numbers is that there is one less number to pick up, from the top left where all these numbers are. Then net requirements, I should be able to copy the formula. So about 70 of them. Planned order receipts, and V takes 2 weeks. Therefore, I need to release it by week number 1. Okay, so The next one is W. This is where instead of starting from week 1, I should have started from week 0, because we need a total of 7 weeks, and you will get to see why. So W also needs to start from week number 3. So equals to W 200 units, 0 known, projected on hand is 30, therefore I need about 170 units, which is 200 minus 0 minus 30. Now it takes 3 weeks, so I need 1, 2, and 1 more. So I need 3 more weeks. So let me bring all of these one cell to the right so that I can start from week 0. So instead of 1 here, okay. So I'm going to correct this and then start my recording again. Okay. So I'm just filling these up because I needed the space for 1 extra week. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So we were at W. Okay. So now it needs 3 weeks. So 1, 2, and 3. So 3 unit in at this time I would release 170 orders for 170 units to be made. Similarly for X needs to be done in week 3. So I'll highlight that column so that I don't lose track of it. So I need X. How many X do I need? I need 100 units, and everything else will remain the same. So I should be able to copy the formula and paste these formulas such that this is equals to 25. So 100 units were required gross, out of which 25 were projected to be on hand, left over from somewhere. Therefore I need about 75, and the order for these need to be released a week prior. So the planned order release will happen in week number 2, given that now we are dealing with scale of 1 through 7 for the timeline. Okay, so let's talk about why. So Y will start in this column. Okay, so gross requirement planning for Y are we need 400. I have 0 information for scheduled receipts, but projected on hand at 240. Therefore my net requirement is going to be 400 minus 0 minus 240, which is about 160 units only, and it takes 2 weeks to make Y, so I should release the information for this 1 week in 2 weeks. So let me see if these are aligned. Oh, this is not aligned. Come on. Okay, so if I start with this on Y in week number this, so for Y I need 400 units. Schedule receipts 240 equals to 400 minus 0 minus 240. Planned order receipts 160 and lead time of 2 weeks, so 1 2 160. So I'm done with W, X, and Y. The last one now is Z, and the last one is Z. So Z is in this column, so I'm going to start with Z equals to 600. This is 0, this is 40 units, therefore net requirements is 600 minus 0 minus 40. If planned order receipts are 560 units, and it takes 2 weeks, so 1, yeah, does it take 2 units? No, it takes 1, so this is supposed to be 1. So I'm going to release this the week prior. So now if we look at this, W and Y, they are starting, so make sure this is for the production schedule, this is for the releasing, okay? So you can either type this as 0 week, and then everything else would be on the same level. Okay, let's do 0, just to make it everything on the same level. Nothing particular about this, because these are done by automated by software. You should be provided a software in the company wherein you will be doing this, but at the basic level you should also know how to do it. So we want to release the mass production schedule using net requirements planning with all of these details, okay, for each individual unit. So when you will release this information as a manager, the purchase and procurement department needs to know, or the sales department needs to know only this much for the unit S. Okay, now people who are responsible for assembling the units T and U, they only need to know this much information such that they can deliver S units by the end of this week. Now for within the divisions of T and U, the supervisor that is responsible for the unit T only needs to know the information for V, W, and X. So then they can go ahead and place the orders for these many units on at these times, and have enough manpower on hand that they should be able to make 170 units during the 3 weeks process, such that all the required components of V, W, and X are made, such that the units of U and T can receive them and go on to make the final product of S. Okay, now although this is not asked in the question, but I'm going to use the same information to give you the full detail. So far, this is we went in, made the product structure first. We kept the interrelationship live, so then if I need to change this number, then all the other informations can be changed as well. Then we made a short purchase receipt, as to for each individual quantity um, how many items for each individual components do we need. Then we also brought in the information that was given in terms of time to assemble. Combining the product structure and the information of time to assemble, we made the time phase structure. This time phase structure is then utilized in planning the gross requirement or net requirement planning. If we are talking only about gross requirement planning, then we will only have this much of information, okay, available to us, and it would be a lot easier. Okay, now since we have net requirement planning as the task on hand, we're also taking into account the scheduled receipts and projected on hand. Now in certain scenarios, if depending on the company, you might also have outsourced components, or the components that you're expected to be made from your competitor that you may be able to get. So then you'll accordingly make one more row and reflect that in your net requirement calculation here. Okay. So for S, looks something like this. For T, you have for U, then for V, okay? Then similarly for W, you have for X, you have for Y, and then you have for Z. Now, if we were to also tie all of this information with finance and marketing and purchasing and transportation, then all of this process that we did for MRP, which is material requirement planning or resource planning, it becomes enterprise resource planning, because now you're thinking at the company level and not just at the production level. For example, in order to place the order for, let's say we talk about unit or the component V, in order to release the orders of 70 units to be authorized to be made on the floor, somebody in the finance department needs to verify that and make sure that somebody in the HR has enough lead time to have sufficient amount of people by the end of this week, such that when they're done working for 2 weeks, for this week and this week, uh, when they are expected to be paid in the third week, then the HR can say that yes, these people worked for 2 weeks in order to make unit V, and therefore they need to be paid. And the finance people need to know that beforehand, so then they have enough money on hand to pay those people. In addition, the purchasing department should have placed the orders for these long before these planned order receipts were released on the floor, because if they are coming from outside, because see, this is a level 2 component, which means they are not being made in-house. So the purchasing department should have placed these long before. Think about the inventory management, that they need to be placed long before that they arrive on the site and are available to start the whole production for the level 1 and level 0 units. Okay, so that's all there is for this chapter. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Thanks. Bye-bye.